he just kept digging, just aimlessly digging all day long, we would assume that animal was sick. It was deranged even. And that's us. Digging, with no real end in sight. 76 days of the year. That's how much time you will spend on your phone. 76 days equates to about a fifth of your whole life. That's 16 to 20 years. But why? Why are we so addicted to our phones? It's all by design. Big corporations have made it to where your phones are extremely addictive. And that's because your attention equals money. The longer they can keep your attention, the more money they can make through advertisements and sales. It's all by design, so it's not even your fault. So what's the root of this addiction? Andrew Huberman calls it random intermittent rewards. The random rewards can be receiving a text message, receiving a like, or just scrolling through social media and finding a funny video that makes you laugh or makes you feel good somehow, or even worried, just some kind of illicit emotion that increases your dopamine. That randomness is actually what causes the addiction. Your phone was predictable. You wouldn't even be addicted. Randomized intermittent rewards isn't just seen in phones. This is also seen in things like slot machines, where you'll randomly receive a reward, keeping you hooked because you never know when it's gonna come. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it so addictive. And you might be thinking, this is kind of a stretch. Is your phone really like a slot machine? Is it really built the same way and intended to keep you addicted? And the answer is yes. Phones, even social media, have begun using a pull to refresh feature, just like how slot machines use a lever. The lever itself doesn't actually provide any type of control, but your mind thinks it's in control. The same as refreshing doesn't provide control. It just scatters everything around. Basically, it will always be randomized, but that pull to refresh feature, just like the lever on a slot machine, makes you feel in control. And that's part of the whole illusion. You will scroll mindlessly, hoping for that next hit, that next spike of dopamine. You're rolling the dice, hoping that one of those videos is gonna make you laugh. You can't help yourself but to keep scrolling. When it comes to social media, it really is just like an addict pulling on that slot machine. You can't help yourself. Even if deep down, you know you're wasting your own time. It's all fun and games because your mind actually associates it just like a gambling addict would a slot machine. You think it's fun, and it almost starts becoming something worse. It's no longer an addiction, but actually it's kind of starting to mimic OCD, an obsessive compulsive disorder, where you're doing something passively in hopes of some kind of result or creating some kind of relief when it never does. You never feel satisfied. Exactly how an OCD victim will clean for hours hoping to feel satisfied, you'll scroll endlessly. You'll never feel like enough is enough. Andrew Huberman goes as far as to compare it to if you were to visualize that we were studying some kind of specimen that was digging, just digging in the ground in hopes of finding a bone. He just kept digging, just aimlessly digging all day long. We would assume that animal was sick. It was deranged even. And that's us. Digging, with no real end in sight. It is estimated we use our phones between 4 to 6 hours a day. When you take the average of about 5 hours a day times 365 days a year, you get 76 days of the year being used on your phone. This is about 20% of your lifetime spent on memes, videos, liking posts. Imagine if you were to put 16 to 20 years of your life doing something productive. Imagine the version of yourself you could have become. But instead, most of us will waste their lives away on our phones. If you think about it, there's 24 hours to the day. 8 of those hours were spent sleeping, 8 of those hours working, and then the last 8 hours that we have to build ourselves up, we're spending a quarter to half of that on our phones. Pretty sad amount of time. It's not like an hour or two. It's actually 5 hours for most people, the average person. Keep in mind, there's people who are even far exceeding that. When you're 60, 80 years old, are you really gonna look back and feel that all that phone usage was worth your time? It's mindless. It's not productive at all. On what? Memes? Call it for what it is. It's an addiction. We gotta really look into how we can retake our lives. Because honestly, it's not even our faults. It was robbed from us from major companies using all the best resources to understand human psychology to the point that they could steal away your attention. But now that we know it's a problem, I want to discuss how we can actually go about mitigating this. And that's what this video is all about. about trying to reduce your phone addiction or trying to alleviate it to the point where there's a healthy balance. Is it really an addiction, or am I going too far? I pulled up the definition of an addiction. Physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects. So the first part of that, so it's being dependent on something. So let's break that down. What does it mean to even be dependent? For it to be dependent, that means that we must use it in times that are kind of inappropriate. But let's think back to it. Whenever you're bored, do you ever just pull out your phone? Maybe when you're at the dinner table, when you're on a date, when you're talking to friends, or maybe you're feeling a little bored at work, at a social event, or you can't go to the restroom without looking at your phone. I would argue that's being dependent on it. Most people are dependent on them. We can't go without them. And now if we break down the second part of that definition, without feeling an adverse effect. Do we feel withdrawals when we don't have our phones? Do we feel any adverse effects? Let's dive into that. If there's an adverse effect, it would show up in studies, right? And it does. So the average person told to keep away from their phones for a prolonged period of time, talking about like a week, there's actually signs that they start feeling high anxiety just because their phone's not near them. Oddly enough, you actually start showing signs of withdrawals. They'll have an extreme urge to want to use their phones. So there's this like phantom push, like, oh, let me get my phone, but they don't have it. They start feeling the feeling of missing out, FOMO. They feel as if they're missing out on something. They're unaware of current news or their friends are doing. They have no idea what's going on in the world. Studies point that, yes, actually, we do have an adverse effect when we're not near our phone. It's part of our lives now. Take it as you will, but there's obviously an addiction aspect to that. You might be thinking like, maybe I'm not that guy. But try leaving your phone at home. Can you? Are you able to go a day, even just one singular day without your phone? I'm pretty sure most people will actually come up with an excuse. They'll say, I need it. What if my relative calls or something? When's the last time your relatives called for an emergency? Or do you really need your phone for just that one day for this random trial? I think most people have a hard time even wanting to do that type of trial, let alone when they do it. I think they're going to find out very soon they are addicted. I'm pretty sure they'll start feeling anxiety and they'll start feeling like they're missing out on something and the need to use it. Try it for yourself. If you do this, put it down in the comment section. I'm curious to see how you actually felt. Were you seeing the same signs? When it comes to phone use, obviously the dopamine is cheap and plentiful. We get a lot of joy, laughter, random dopamine spikes, just scrolling social media, texting people, whatever the case is. Because of these cheap and plentiful dopamine spikes, we actually start seeing the world around us as gloomy. Studies have shown that people who have high phone usage actually see the world as a sadder, less joyful. They don't appreciate the world because their brains are so fried. They're used to having all this high-end dopamine from their phone that when they go outside, smell the fresh air, it just feels sad to them by comparison. If you actually start using your phone less and less, you'll start seeing the world as a happier place. You'll start appreciating the beauty of the world itself. But that beauty was always there. Your dopamine was just fried. And to show how extreme it actually is, there's actually a correlation between depression and phone usage. We don't really know if people who are depressed just have high phone usage, or people who have high phone usage become depressed. Additionally, from this correlation with depression, which is already in itself scary, dopamine typically will return to baseline. When you have high phone usage, what ends up happening, your dopamine will drop below baseline. Dopamine is what gives you drive, motivation, and joy. So if you go around your daily life with a below baseline dopamine, you're literally just sad and unmotivated. I think just by that, argue that it probably does cause depression. Additionally, from the dopamine issues of you feeling unmotivated, since dopamine is so easily and plentifully found on your phone, what ends up happening, you have issues with delayed gratification. You're unable to go to hard tasks because you can have instant gratification from your phone. So you won't want to do things like working out because it takes a long time to see a result. You won't want to talk to people in real life because it's hard to nurture relationships. You won't want to do really anything that's worth working for. Since you have problems with delayed gratification, you're probably not going to be that willing to study, to perform difficult tasks at work because it's going to feel bad relative to phone usage. Why not look at funny memes instead? Obviously, one's gonna feel a lot better. You train yourself to not be able to delay gratification. You just want that instant hit. More people are experiencing myopia. It's more than doubled, I believe, from the 70s. Myopia is nearsightedness. Myopia could be correlated to our increase in phone use. And I mentioned this in the previous video about trying Andrew Huberman's morning routine. One of the things he preaches about is having healthy circadian rhythm. Using your phone at night emits blue light. Blue light actually messes up your circadian rhythm. It won't allow you to get deep sleep. And deep sleep's important because the quality of sleep is correlated to your ability to perform, to feel motivated, feel alert during the day. So if you have your phone on at night or you're using it at night, you're probably not going to get good deep sleep even if you sleep 8 hours, which means you'll be a diminished version of yourself. Don't use your phone before nighttime. Obviously, there's a huge negative there. Another quick one, Andrew Huberman believes there could be misdiagnosed ADHD cases because having fried dopamine from high usage of phones tends to have the same symptoms as ADHD in that people who have fried dopamine have lower attention spans. Basically, having high phone usage messes up your dopamine so bad that you're unable to pay attention. So you start doing poorly in school, or you just have a hard time paying attention, and same thing with work. So potentially some of the ADHD cases are actually just people who have high phone usage and fried their dopamine. So if they fix their dopamine, they'd get rid of their attention disorder. They'd be able to focus again. Obviously there's people who truly have ADHD, but it's interesting to think that some of these people were misdiagnosed and just have a problem with phone usage. Now that we actually went through all the negatives and some of the things Andrew Huberman has talked about, I want to go through the positives. So what happens if you actually stop using your phone? Why would you want to? So I'm going to go over that so you have an understanding and a goal as to why you want to implement the steps in reducing your phone usage. One, as just previously mentioned, you'll actually increase your attention span. You'll be able to focus in and deep work when it comes to school, working out, work. You'll actually have a better attention span. Obviously, that's going to help you self-develop, prosper, or just do good at school or work. So very invaluable there. Another reason, reducing your phone usage has shown to increase people's relationships. So for example, if you're dating someone, you not using your phone leads to you having deeper conversations with them, paying attention to them, paying attention to family. So people have actually shown stronger relationships with loved ones, family members, and friends. Things I noticed was increased productivity just because I have so much free time, and increased tidiness. You have so much free time, you can start doing things that you kind of didn't realize you were ignoring. Started walking my dog more. Literally my room and office are always extremely clean because I use downtime instead of being on my phone to just kind of clean up, dust around. You can obsess over a hobby, you start some kind of side business, because obviously 5 hours a day, if you can somehow do 2 of those hours on something else, that's a ton of time. You can literally start working out with the time you save. A workout should only be like an hour or less. You can start literally transforming your whole self. You should probably be convinced that using your phone is bad. So now let's talk about the ways in which you can mitigate phone use, because this is going to be the no BS detox guide of trying to get your life back, reduce your phone addiction. Step 1, you need to just delete the apps. Delete Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, anything that's a waste of your time. And you might make some weird argument why you think you need it because you have a group chat there, or that's how you communicate with friends, or blah, blah, blah. You don't need them. Just delete them. You're still going to be their friends. If you rely on Snapchat that bad for friendship, honestly, that doesn't make any sense. You can just text them. They're going to be there. You'll see them eventually. It's not a big deal. Just let them know you deleted social media and that they should probably do that too. And you might think to yourself, hey, I'm disciplined. I'll just cut back. That's not going to be true. It's an addiction. You're not in control. If you were in control, you wouldn't have been addicted. It's not a discipline issue. Even myself, I couldn't cut back on social media. The only way that I actually found a solution was once I deleted the apps. And I even had moments where I re-downloaded them and became addicted again. You literally need to delete them and keep them deleted, or you will go back. You're not going to be disciplined. If you were going to be disciplined, you would have been addicted. You need to treat it like a drug. It is an addiction. And the only way to do that is just get it out of sight, out of mind. Reason with yourself, is that app really worth your time? The answer is no. So just delete it. Step 2, add the time usage widget on your phone. I would put it right smack in the front of your phone screen. The first page, iPhone has this, and I'm assuming Android must have the same widget. You just go into settings, add the widget. It'll show how many hours you use your phone. I will say my numbers were a little skewed because I use FaceTime a lot, and it'll say I'll have this high phone usage when in reality it's just me on FaceTime. But I think it's still helpful to have a realization how often you're using your phone, even if it might be on slightly more productive things. Just put the widget in there. It's really helpful. I think it's one of those things that really gave me that shock value to want to change. So even if you don't implement the steps yet, just at least put the widget there so you're aware how ridiculous it really is. Step number 3, you really just want to cut back. Just kind of like nicotine addicts, you're not going to really be able to go cold turkey. You're still going to want to use your phone. I'll tell you a little tidbit about when I cut my phone usage. Once I delete all my social media apps, for some odd reason, I would go into the Google app and read junk articles. Like I'll read the most randomest of articles to waste time instead of using social media. Obviously, I was still addicted to my phone and my brain would try to find anything to fill that time. So you need to figure out how to cut back. Set like a specific goal and slowly get there, but do it incrementally because you're not gonna be able to cut back fully off the bat. Go towards like, let's say an hour. And once you reach that, try to stay there. It's gonna be like working out. You're not gonna be fit in a couple months. It's gonna take a year maybe, or a lot of months. And I know that's painful to think about, but phone usage is a lifelong change. It's something that you're gonna wanna implement like working out. It needs to be something realistic, like put an hour a day for phone usage. Make it realistic and stick to it just like working out would be. And once you do those reps, you do all those successful days of not using your phone for more than an hour, you'll kind of get in the habit and it'll be something you'll do forever. And make it something that doesn't burn you out. Don't do some weird goal like, oh, I won't use my phone more than 10 minutes a day or something. It's not realistic. Just do something that's a healthy balance because it's really all about just being a better you. And you're going in a positive direction. That's really all you need. Step number 4. I would try to find a healthy alternative off the bat. Kind of that last step where I mentioned, I didn't notice, so I would do that dumb thing of opening articles. I'd read articles to waste time somehow. So instead of doing that, just off the bat be like, what's my healthy alternative? I'd recommend one of two, or maybe both. Reading and journaling. You don't even have to read anything that's like productive. I personally like reading self-help books. I have some back here. What you could do is just read fiction or something entertaining or journal. Anything like that is actually still helpful. Just reading even fiction will probably increase your reading skills or how to formulate sentences. So it's helpful to just read in general. So find that healthy alternative from the beginning. So when you feel bored or you're gonna go to, let's see, the bathroom or something, instead of taking your phone and reading through articles like I did at first, take that book, carry that book or journal with you everywhere. I don't know if you can journal in the bathroom, but you get the idea. Try to find some kind of healthy alternative, whatever that alternative you want to do. Maybe start a business, a blog, whatever it is, just make it something that'd be useful. Step 5, and this one might sound a little drastic, but you want to hide your phone. Like I said, it really is an addiction, so keep it out of sight. Put it under your mattress, put it in a different room. When I'm at work, I actually put it in a drawer because I realized during downtimes at work, I would just get on my phone, and that's silly. Just wait till you get home. So now I lock my phone in a drawer. Same thing if I'm trying to be productive at home. I'll try to put it under the mattress, something out of sight, out of mind. Step 6, and I wouldn't take this one lightly. Just how your phone got you addicted by randomized rewards, you want to randomly reward yourself. Maybe it's been like 2-3 weeks and you've been successful. Give yourself a reward. Why not? Do something fun or buy yourself a dinner and just actually associate that reward with having low phone usage. Step 7 is for people that couldn't delete the apps. At least turn off the notifications. That way you won't be constantly opening them, because once you open Instagram or Snapchat, you're gonna wanna scroll. And that's when you go into that rabbit hole of doom scrolling. So at least turn off the notifications. And additionally, if you're gonna turn off the notifications, set aside like a specific time when you wanna look. Trust me, nothing's that urgent that you need to look hourly or when you get that notification. So turn off notifications and set around a time of when you can actually look through your phone. Kind of what I was alluding in step 7, you need to set a time block of when you're actually on your phone. So I personally use what's called the Pomodoro method. This is when you use a certain amount of time studying or working and a certain time for breaking. So for example, I'd work for an hour of work, 10 minutes of Slack time. An hour of work, 10 minutes of Slack time. Or 30 minutes of work, 5 minutes of Slack. That's what the Pomodoro method is. Kind of gives you a refresher. And if you want, for those 5-10 minutes, use your phone. I mean, why not? You already deserve it. You did some work, but don't do it for an hour. Don't mindless scroll. Use the Pomodoro method. There's timers that can help you with this where you set intervals. I have one right there on my desk. Not sure if it's visible. Bought this off Amazon, I think. It's pretty cheap and it kind of just sets different times. So do something like that. You don't have to actually buy a fancy timer. You can just use your phone, but set aside times. And if you don't want to do the Pomodoro method, maybe say from 7 to 8 is my phone time. And then maybe set another 30-minute block, like from 5:30 to 6. That way you have 2 different blocks. Whatever the case is, just make it reasonable and realistic. And remember, it's really something major companies did to make you addicted. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of visual cue. I'm not sure if this would be more like a next step, but there needs to be a visual cue. So the timer is helpful in that there's this visual stop. And you might be thinking, is a visual cue really that necessary? Let me tell you about a study that's kind of interesting. They studied 2 people eating soup. 1 cup of soup would automatically self-refill, so you would never see the bottom. Another cup of soup wouldn't refill, but if it was empty, they could ask the waiter for more. The people who had a self-refilling soup ate 73% more. 73% more soup. The reason they did this is because they don't have a visual cue of when to stop. And what this teaches you is that people believe that we know when we're satisfied and we could stop. Same thing with social media. You feel like you know when you'll be satisfied, but you don't. The only reason you do stop is because of visual cues. So you need to have something visual to make you want to stop. That's why timers are really important. So there's actually a couple ways of having visual cues. There's one that I discovered by accident. Basically, I stopped charging my phone at night, and then I charge it at work, and what ended up happening, I'd come home to do a little bit of scrolling, and it died. It was actually pretty crazy. It felt like I was hypnotized, because when I'd see the phone die and go into a black screen, I'd kind of feel like I was released from hypnosis. I could be like, oh, whoa, I was just scrolling for like 30 minutes. This one sounds a little drastic, but try to keep your phone near its battery dying. So what ends up happening is that once it dies, you have this visual cue to stop. But that's one drastic way of getting it done, making sure your phone's not always that charged. A second one is just making sure you can set up time blocking to talk to friends, have someone call you. If you're scrolling through social media and you planned on talking with your friend at 7 on the phone or something of that sort, they'll call you. It's like you just got out of a hypnosis. You'll see the phone come and be like, oh, whoa, I was scrolling. And then boom, now you're done scrolling. Or same thing, you have to meet up with them. So you're like, oh, it's 7, I need to call them. Whatever the case is, schedule something at a certain time when you tend to scroll, and then you'll stop because you'll have that visual cue or that hard stop point. And you need that stop point because once more, you'll scroll forever. We don't have control, just as that soup study showed you. There's also a third example that I've come up with. This one is literally just the timer, kind of already alluded to. It needs to be in front of you, so when you see it hit 0, you know to stop. And that's another way of having that hard visual cue. Step 9. I found this one in an old video from like 5 years ago. I believe it was made by Vox. They recommended turning on grayscale on your phone, setting that makes everything black and white. The reason this could be helpful is because if you're so addicted to your phone, seeing everything in black and white will kind of make you not want to use it. Personally, I tried it for like a day and I didn't like it, which I guess was the point. You're not supposed to like it. But I think that implementing all the other steps is good enough. But if you feel you need that extra barrier or that extra help, yeah, turn on grayscale, try it out. Basically, you go into settings, you'll be able to turn it on there. I think it's in accessibility, but maybe I'll pull it up here on the screen. You basically turn it on and it'll make everything so visually disgusting that you won't be able to scroll for that long because nothing looks that amusing because everything's in black and white. So that's kind of a drastic one, kind of cool. Personally don't use it, but I mean, give it a try if you think it'll help you. Step 10, tied to leaving your phone out of sight, but this one's a little specific to sleeping. Keeping the phone outside your room, maybe an hour or 2 before bed. A couple things happen. So 1, you'll avoid the blue light so you can have deep sleep, which gives you high quality sleep and makes you a better you. 2, you actually won't have an anxiety to want to use it because it's out of the room and it'd be such a bother to turn around and use it. So you have reduced anxiety. You literally won't even have a feeling of turning around to use it or answering it or seeing what that text message was. The reason I never wanted to do that was because I use my phone as an alarm clock. Huge mistake. Alarm clocks are actually really cheap. If you buy an alarm clock, you have something dedicated as an alarm. So 1, if your phone's ever dead, you don't have to worry. You have an alarm clock. Really helpful. Just buy an alarm clock and get the phone out of your room before bed. Use the alarm clock itself. It's a really cheap alternative. It's invaluable, honestly. If you're having that much of a hard time keeping it out of the room, you're probably very addicted at that point. But that's all the helpful steps. Hopefully this video was really helpful. Leave a like, comment. Really loved researching for this video. Hopefully this helps you reduce your phone usage. See you guys in the next one. Always a pleasure.